Hello YouTubers. Now there's thousands, if not more, of videos on YouTube about repairs of this, that and the other, including ESL63s. However, my series will be basically showing myself how I've gone about it for future reference, and if it's of help to anyone else, well and good. So enjoy. First, a little bit of background history. I was in television in my earlier career as a technician, and I loved it, and I was into photography before that. So anyway, since I've been into video and have for a long time, but I said that I wouldn't get a video camera until they became small enough to fit in the palm of your hand, and they finally did in the early 90s, and I bought my first Panasonic Super VHS camcorder in 1993, and I've taken lots of videos with it, and it was great. But of course it was only standard definition, but at the time that seemed like a miracle. So anyway, moving on. So in the 2000s I started buying cheap HD cameras, and yeah, they sort of worked, 720p, etc. But now I've got several cameras. I've got what's taking the pictures is the Sony 4K Handycam. It's a lovely camera, and I have also the previous generation Handycam HD. They both have excellent Steadicam capabilities and take a wonderful picture. However, last year I was going to go overseas. I wanted something smaller and more compact, so I decided, and I waited, and I got the Sony A6400, and yeah, it's a terrific little camera. I also wanted something that I could take really nice stills with, so I was only going to use the kit lens. That's all I was going to take with me, and but I had trouble with the US visas. Yeah, US again. So I didn't go, and this year, of course, it's April 2020, and guess what? I'm stymied again. So 2 years in a row I've missed out on my trip to the US. I've booked again for next year, but I'm starting to have my doubts whether I can afford it and whether or not it'll be still okay to go in June next year, 2021. We shall see. Besides, the way Super is going, I may not be able to afford it after all of this. For those who don't know, Super is the mandated superannuation nest egg that all workers in Australia put forward their part of their pay into, and also the employer puts money in. I'm not sure what it is now, but it was 5%, and great idea. But it's getting less and less, because a certain amount of it is in the stock market, and stock market's only for rich people, so they're the only ones who ever make money out of it, and the rest of us, we just lose. So we shall see whether or not I get to do my trip again, but at least I have got my camera out of it, and so that's something. By way of introduction, this is also shows the stuff I've got, what I plan to do with these, and a little bit about why I've been into quads. My first loudspeaker that I bought back in the 70s was a pair of Advent Large. Unfortunately, they couldn't handle a lot of power, and their crossover was just a capacitor at 1000 hertz. I mean, no wonder the tweeters blew up. And eventually I just used the boxes as woofer boxes, but I still have the boxes, and I may one day make them up into something useful. But the original Advent design was fairly unique in that the woofer was, I forget the term for it, but it was a small driver in a fairly large box. Can't think of the name, but it was you know, designed by Advent, and you look up how they worked and you'll see what I mean. So apart from having the boxes still, it's a lost cause. Anyway, in the about 1993, at the low point of vinyl, I decided to lash out, and I bought a pair of brand new ESL63s. It cost me $8,000 at the time, and I'd borrowed $10,000, so I had $2,000 left, and I thought, oh. Anyway, the guy who sold me the speakers, he said, oh, I've got this turntable you might be interested in. Now remember, this was at the nadir of vinyl, 93. They had trouble giving this stuff away. Everyone was into CDs. So anyway, I bought this second-hand Oracle turntable with a Koitsu Onyx Gold cartridge with an Empire arm, and for $1,500, and these are all Australian dollars, of course, only dollar worthwhile talking about. So that was great. And anyway, it turns out nowadays it's a definite bargain. I mean, I've had it for 25 years and it's now still worth more than what I paid for it, even second hand and the way it is. I had the Koitsu re-tipped, and yeah, certainly a lot easier than or cheaper than buying a new one. For it's Onyx Platinum, I think, is the only one they have now, and it's, I don't know, something like $10,000, so I won't be doing that. So a bargain. I've been collecting vinyl since 1970, so I have about 2,000 LPs, which I'll show you shortly. And the other thing that I'm into, of course, is movies. I have a large array of Blu-ray, 4K Blu-rays, DVDs, D-Theater, HD DVD, and I even have a few laser discs and the other old type, which I don't play. I've never played them. I just have them as specimens. But I can play all the HD DVD, Blu-ray, 4K Blu-ray, and DVDs, and so I'm into that. I'll quickly show you my record and DVD collection. This is my record collection. A few old radios up there. Record collection, there's around about 2,000, or a bit less. This is my movie collection. I keep these in my spare room. Right, now to my music room or home theatre room. Right, it's just a quick scan of it. Right. my old dual 1219 turntable with a moving coil autophon, Samba I think. There's the Oracle I mentioned with the Koitsu cartridge, preamp. It's a Martin Velek design and it works wonderfully. It's transistors. Denon SACD DVD audio DVD CD player, which I bought a long time ago. I'm not sure what year. I paid about $1,800 for it, and still excellent. Although the one above it in the silver, without anything showing what it is a USB DAC that I recently built up, and is honestly the best sounding decoder I've got. To feed it I use a Raspberry Pi 3 connected to my intranet, and it connects to my servers, and using a laptop or tablet I can control it and play music, and it sounds fantastic using this particular decoder. Above it feeds into my Hafler DH101, which is I've had it since the early 80s, and it has always sounded fantastic. I love it. As good as anything you can get now. I have modified it to be more transparent using direct coupling and better capacitors, but it still sounded good before that. The only mod left to do is the power supply to increase its HiFi attributes, so to speak. Above it is a DBX decoder, which I've been using lately to decode my DBX records that I play. I've only got a few of them, so it's just a bit of a toy at the moment. The output of the audio from the vinyl goes through these Zektor switches, which you can't buy anymore, so I've been buying them off eBay, and whenever they come up I bought them, and I have 3 of them now, I think. And part of the idea is that those two together, being 6 in 1 out, means that with 2 of them I can have 12 in 1 out, which basically means I can use it for Dolby Atmos when I get around to upgrading my speaker system from 5.1. So I'm getting ready to do that, slowly but surely. I have enough Quad 405 amplifiers, cloned or real. Driving from the Zektor, I choose either the output from the stereo or multi-channel audio from the Hafler, or the output of the Marantz tuner preamp. There's no amps in that. That was quite expensive, and that feeds well, that provides the surround sound from the Panasonic 4K player. I have several 4K players, but this is the main one that I use in this room. Up there is my JVC, I think it's X9000 projector. It's one of these E-Shift 4K, pseudo 4K. JVC have new 4K projectors out which are okay, but while they're true 4K, their black levels aren't nearly as good as this. Of all the recent, well, like within 10 years, the only projector that has the best projector of them with the lowest black levels is that one there, the X9000 eShift HD projector. It's meant to do HDR as well, but I haven't had much luck with that, and it's not a big deal for me. It's on auto eShift all the time, so everything that goes through it, be it 4K or HD, is upscaled to 4K, and there is a subtle improvement, I might add. It is worth having. Next I have a 100-inch screen that I painted myself. It's using a slight grey screen goo. And to be honest, if I could afford a, well, say 90-inch OLED or QLED or QD LED or whatever these days, I would probably go for that instead. But the projector is still lovely, and it's fabulous to watch with great black levels. I've had quite a few projectors. I've had the old Sony CRT projectors, which the blacks were really good. Not perfect, but really good. And I had a Sony Ruby projector, fabulous HD projector. Cost a lot of money at the time, but it had the best black levels for a digital projector at the time, but in retrospect it was pretty bad, and I ended up selling it for less than a tenth of what I paid for it, with a spare lamp. Anyway, that's progress. But the JVC X9000 on this, I love it. It's really nice. Now, this isn't meant to be in this room. This is a 65-inch LG OLED. It is curved, unfortunately. I prefer flat, but it was the very last one that was available that would handle 3D, so I had to go out and buy it. It's my second OLED screen. The other one is also curved, unfortunately, but at least they do 3D. I don't watch 3D a lot, but I do love it. That is destined to be in to go into the living room. Now, to the most important bits of this story. I have a pair of quad ESL 2912s. They were my retirement present to myself when I retired. They cost me $12,500 for the pair, which was a good price. At the time, it was about 6 or 7 years ago. I think the retail price is now over $20,000 for them. They're still the current model, but I believe a new model is coming out within a year or 2 or 3. So there's the left and there's the right. I also have a single ESL 63 for the centre channel. I managed to buy just a single one on its own from Sydney, and it's had its problems, but it's working fine at the moment. Currently I'm running a pair of ALEF 2s, 100 watts per monoblock, class A, pure, so they're dissipating 300 watts each. Also have a pair of ESL63s in the rear for the surround speakers. There's the other rear quad 63. So in this room it's a 5.1 quad ESL setup. The 0.1 is actually a cone 15-inch subwoofer that is over behind the screen. I do tend to cut off the speakers at 150 Hertz when watching movies, so that I'm not at risk of damaging the speakers, because the 2912s, I've had trouble with them. The left one, I've replaced one panel. The right one, I've replaced at least 3. And I've had other problems which I can go into in another video. But I still love them. Alright, let's move on. As mentioned, I bought my first ESL63s in 1993. I own 4 of these. I have 8 of these to repair. Big job. As I mentioned, I've had problems with the 2912s and the centre speaker in my room. However, I did buy some real panels and I've repaired them. So I'm left with just these 8, Now that we're all stuck at home for God knows how long, I've finally, after doing a couple of other minor jobs, finally now got around to the time where I'm actually going to spend some time to fix these and get them out of this room. As you might have gathered, this room needs to be renovated, and I've been reluctant to do that until certain things were out of this room. This is the only place I can store them where they're safe. So I need to repair these 8 and get them back into service, give the 4 of them back to their owners, and the other 4 are mine. Now what I plan to do with my 4 is to introduce them into the hi-fi room and use them as extra speakers in an Atmos setup. Probably 2 as new side speakers and or rear speakers. So in other words, 4 speakers in the rear arc of the room. The other 2 I plan to put in the centre of the front, so that I will have 3 centre speakers in an ever so slight arc, just to fill the room with the centre sound. I've had that set up before, and I really liked it because what happens with the one speaker, even though they have good wide dispersion, it's not perfect. It is a little bit of beaming, but by having 3 of them, I found that it really fills the room. So when you have more than a few people, it really helps to fill the sound out. And as far as losing a bit of quality with the 3 of them, I haven't found it to be a bother. And let's face it, it's only for either surround music, centre channel, or voice in the centre. It's great. I don't think it's a problem, and having the 3 speakers at once emanating and perhaps affecting each other, I haven't found it to be a problem. Maybe in some theoretical circles it might be, but in practice, no, it's great. And it really does give you a wall of sound across the front. And it helps. The more speakers you have, the less likely you are to need to subwoofer them. I still need to subwoofer the main 2912s, but only for movies. The stereo music through the Hafler at the moment is stereo only, and it's not capable of accessing the subwoofer, so that's full range. Right, moving along. Oh, there's another DBX thing. I've got lots of bits and pieces that I probably won't keep forever. Some of the panels from the speakers that are already taken out. There's more here. A couple of these are brand new, and I will keep them for spares for my 2912. As a matter of interest, here was a bit of fun that I had with the right hand 2912. Was a really bad burn. Fortunately I wasn't in the room at the time, or unfortunately, and you can see what it's done there. It's just basically ruined the panel. I'm not sure if I'll be able to repair this at all, because you can't have the charcoal there. It will conduct, and there's more of it there. It's a real shame. I'll have a go at trying to repair it one day. Basically carving away all the carbon and replacing the circuit board with a section of new circuit board on both of them. That will mean sacrificing one of these panels, or both actually. This one has the fabric over it, the other one doesn't. We shall see. Okay, so I will be completely refurbishing these panels. There's a couple more. What I do is I keep a folder of each one. Keep a folder of each one, the serial numbers of all of the panels. For example, here, this is a serial number 855, and that's the serial numbers of each of them. The idea is that I can keep a full track of them and what gets done, because when you have so many, it's so easy to get them all mixed up. So easy. And I want to try and make sure that the right panels go back in the right speakers for the owners. So as you can see, I keep documentation for all of this. I use a Quad 405 clone amplifier to drive the speakers when I'm testing, and the Yamaha receiver and Blu-ray player for playing whatever, and another receiver I obtained exactly the same type as a gift. Don't know what I'll do with them, but they were nice amps. That one there used to be in my home theatre room before I got the Marantz, and once again I don't use the amps in them, only the preamps, and the quality of the sound was very nice. So I may actually use this Yamaha as a amplifier in this living room when I finally moved the TV into here. Now this 4-channel Technics CD4 amplifier is a recent acquisition, which something to play with in the future. I fully intend to make my music in the living room fully surround. I've always been into surround music, and I've collected quite a lot, and I have a lot of DTS CDs and I love them. There's a Marantz network audio player, NA7004, that is still needing a little home. I have a couple of SW63s. These are subwoofers that go underneath 63s, and they fit under them really well, and they're hard to come by these days, but although they're getting long in the tooth, they're still good. And I may actually use these for my rear speakers in the living room, or actually thinking about it, I might actually use them as subs for this living room when I set up the new setup in here, because it would be nice to have a really good quality system in this room as well as in the living room. And for the rear 63s in the HiFi room, theatre room, I don't really need them to be subbied, because there's usually very little bass in them, and also with the Marantz, the bass is redirected to the 0.1 subwoofer anyway. Alright, now, as I said, I will be repairing all of these panels. Now, to do that, they have to be cleaned, scraped, and the stators need to be re-glued and mylar placed on them. One method of placing the mylar on these is to stretch the mylar across a table or glass window, and stretch each side with a spring gauge, and stick it down with gaffer tape or something similar. However, I haven't had much success with that. To get a good tension on the mylar diaphragm is really difficult. So my thought was to build a jig, and here it is here. The idea of this jig is to have the panel sit on top there, and the mylar sitting across it, and stretched all the way around using springs that I would tension using a spring gauge, which I have all this stuff. I've made all this stuff up. It's just a matter of finalizing it all. The idea of this here is that as the tensioning goes to each spring, which is connected to here, it rolls over that, so there's no friction to speak of. And that should work well. Now, how do I know what the right tension is? Well, what I had been doing is using little weights in the center of good ESL 63 panel diaphragms, and when the weight was such that it dropped the diaphragm down to the stator, that particular weight is what I need to reproduce, so that basically they all have the same tension. And I still think that's a good idea. However, watching YouTube, I've come across from from watching a Netherlands chappie who does it differently, and I'm rather intrigued. He does the idea of stretching the mylar in a different way. That's his prerogative, and it's certainly quite a bit simpler than what I've got here. However, I've made this up, so I'm thinking that it will work fine. I mean, stretching it with tensioning is, it's all the same, so long as it does the same job. However, his idea that I'm actually rather intrigued with, and I think I might have to investigate doing it, and that is by measuring the resonance of the mylar before gluing it down. And I think his measurements were around about 70 Hertz. And how he does that is not actually excite the panel with high voltage and audio signal level, which of course means a lot of wires from a rig of an old ESL63. That's a real messy procedure, but his idea is you just have a speaker facing it and run it and measure the audio on the other side, and as it passes through the mylar, it has a resonance at the resonance of the mylar. So that makes a lot of sense, and it's certainly a lot easier than actually exciting the diaphragm itself. And also too, by then you don't necessarily have the coating on the diaphragm yet, so because you wouldn't normally do that until after it's been stretched and glued onto the stator frame, because otherwise it's just could be a waste of effort and material. So his method of just simply exciting the diaphragm from below or however you set it up makes a lot of sense, and well, thank God for the YouTube. And I'm thinking I might do that. Prior to doing that, what I will do is since I have quite a few 63s sort of semi-working, not all the panels will work, and what I might do is, like for example here in this when that's empty, I'll stick in a really good panel, or a new panel that I've got a couple of, put it in, excite it, and see if it has a resonance on its own. I can either excite it by its own electronics or by the separate speaker system where you just pass the audio through the diaphragm with a microphone on the other side. So either way, I can find out what the resonance is on these, and if it's as the Dutch fellow found, that it's about 70 Hertz, and if it is, it's just a matter of then using that method of stretching the mylar across the jig until I get that particular resonance, and once I got that frequency of resonance right, e.g. 70 Hertz or whatever it is, it might be less or a bit more. But to do that, I'm going to have to saw some holes into this rig here. I have 1, 2, 3 pieces. This one is I don't know, 15mm, 10, 15mm, but this one here is a good 25mm, so it's quite thick, but so be it. I have enough jigsaws and whatever to do the job. So there you go. So this series will I will basically go through my whole repair system from where to go. If I miss anything, sorry about that, but I'll do my best. And as I said, there's lots of stuff on YouTube about all of these things, and this is mostly for my benefit, to be honest, but you may enjoy watching it, and I will try to keep things as entertaining and concise as possible. The last thing you want on YouTube is lots of waffling on. So even this particular video introduction, I've waffled on quite a bit, but it's also been a bit of an introduction to me and what I'm doing. So I hope you enjoy this, and we shall move on. All right. Hooroo for now. Bye.